My first steel fabrication project was a welded steel barrier. DIYing this project easily repaid me for my investment in welding gear and material from the savings from what I had been quoted to have it made for me. I decided to get it powder coated rather than paint myself. I'm reasonable with a can of spray paint, but being such an intricate shape, I was worried I would likely have a few dribbles. And powder coating is more durable. As you can see, the matte black powder coating on this barrier came out beauty. Add to that, the cost was only $60 New Zealand and was probably cheaper than buying paint. Why wouldn't I do the same on my welded steel driveway gates project? The only major difference being this is an exterior project and the barrier is interior. I've already learned a lot of lessons building these gates and I'm about to learn a few more. I can tell you now it's definitely good value for money and the finish you get from powder coating is perfect. But is it the correct option if you're contemplating a similar project? Keep watching to the end of the video to find that out. Find out what I did right, what mistakes I made, and what you should avoid and maybe do differently. In this video, I'll share tips that I learned from my powder coater on my first project, lessons I learned from the powder coater on this project, and the drama of a massive disaster I had when trying to correct my mistakes over my... And let's get it done, eh? 1. Tips that I learned from my first project. When I took my steel barrier to the powder coater, he sent me back home to sand off the mill scale as it can affect the paint from sticking. I had removed it from all the welded areas, but the sections in between were still covered in the mill scale. Mill scale is the greyish blue coating mild steel has on it from the manufacturing process. Sanding off the mill scale ended up taking quite a long time as A, when all the pieces are fabricated together, they are more difficult to access, and B, sanding off mill scale is a massive grind. So on this project, I removed all of the mill scale from the parts before fabricating the gate frames. I didn't even use the grinder. Check out my video in this gate series on removing rust and mill scale using the Dazz descaler method. Basically, you soak the steel in vinegar and the mill scale rubs off with wet and dry sandpaper like magic. You can see how shiny all the steel is on my gate frames. Now the mill scale does protect the steel from rusting, so you need to keep the steel dry once the mill scale is removed, and not dilly-dally on getting it all welded up and painted once it's removed. Here I am just giving it a final rub all over with wet and dry sandpaper to prep it for the powder coater. It's a good idea to do this at the final stage to make sure you've got off any weld splatter or any other contaminants like grease you might have got on the steel. 2. Lessons I learned from the powder coater on these gates.
He basically just schooled me. It was so shiny, right, that he thought it was galv. And then he goes, oh, it's not. Oh, nah. Kind of said, like, we can do it, but it's not the ideal. The powder coating is really good, but once it gets a scratch in it or any little chip in it, moisture can get under it and get to that steel and it's just going to rust it and like kind of bubble off the paint. And so that's a bit of a bummer. You know, he gave me props. He said you've done a really, really nice job of cleaning all the steel up. He's super impressed with that. Him and the other lad he's got, here's a funny guy. He goes, oh, yeah, it's nice gal, joking. He says, yeah, you've told him already, right? Yes, that I needed to be schooled. But they said what they're going to do is first they're going to powder coat it with a zinc rich powder, that if anything gets through that top layer then it's going to hit this zinc rich layer and be less likely to corrode. So that's good, and they were super impressed with the job that I'd done on sanding it and finishing it all up. So that was super cool. Really nice people to deal with. Happy I took it there again. I'm kind of happy anyway. I'm okay with it. Basically they said I should have bought galv, like pre-galved parts. You'd have to sand it off everywhere that you went, but I guess then you're not having to worry about getting off the mill scale, so that's one job done. Anyway, they were quite impressed with how I'd got it so shiny. So I told them the vinegar trick, you know, how we had a bit of a chat about that. So anyway, yeah, real nice guys. And then the young guy said, don't worry about it, mate. Like, I cold galved some gates on my house and they're fine. If it comes off, just wire brush it and hit it with some paint. Who cares, right? It's just some gates. So that was the attitude I wanted to hear at the end of the day. He's like, oh, they're really lovely. You've put a really good effort in. But unfortunately, you've kind of done the wrong thing. I said, I'll fish oil the inside of it. And he said, you definitely do that. That'll be a good thing. So Kind of totally messed it up. The other thing he said I could have done, take it to a galvanizer and get it galved now. He said you don't get a nice finish after that. He said, look, we can do it. They're going to do it. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see how it lasts. So we'll better keep an eye on it and see how it goes. I think the worst bit is going to be the hinges because they are going to rub the paint off. Anyway, I'm happy. Job done.
I got my gates back. That was awesome. The gates look amazing. Powder coater is amazing. Really happy with what they did. So I got the gates back. Yesterday was a disaster. Not a complete disaster, but I had some disaster happen yesterday. End of the day came and I went, sweet, I want to get into it. I'll start putting some primer inside these posts and gates. So it's a specific metal primer that I used. It's also got like some kind of rust inhibitor in it. So I thought, perfect, this is perfectly what I want to use. I already had it. It was a light grey colour, not black, which is not ideal. I got the primer out and it didn't say on it whether it was oil or water-based, like what you would thin it with. I was like, hey, you can at least tell me what it is. Is it oil-based or water-based? Like, which one is it? I had assumed it was oil-based, so I put some turpentine in it. Wrong-o, because the turpentine would not mix with it. I went, I guess it's water-based then. So I poured the turpentine back out. Water-based, okay, so I put water in it. Perfect. To get it really runny, I wanted it to run around inside. So I poured it in, I managed to do the first post, tipped up the post to get it all in the end, rolled the post around slowly to get it all fully coating all of the surfaces inside the post. Beautiful, poured that out into a bucket, left the post sitting for a while to drip out into a container, did the second post, did the same with that, and went, hey, I still got time. All right, I'm gonna do one of these gates. I've got two 6mm holes in the bottom corners of the gate. How am I gonna shut these off? Because I wanna get the paint in there, which I had purchased a little squeezy bottle, actually for like oil. That was the bomb. That worked perfectly for squirting the paint into the holes without getting it everywhere. That was a little dream come true. Got it in there. Masking tape turned out to be the magical bullet, did the trick. Put masking tape over the holes, put like about 3 pieces kind of overlapping just to be sure. Turned the gate upside down, the paint didn't come out. Turned it to the other corner, no, it's not coming out. Okay, awesome. So slowly worked that all around the gate. That was like a bit of gymnastics. And I'd done this down the backyard because I was concerned that the paint was going to come out of that masking tape when I least expected it, and I didn't want to be having to clean up a mess. So then, all good, all well, got the first gate done like a dream, poured it out into the bucket. Anyway, first gate done, everything is great. And that actually, by the time I'd worked out how to do the gate with the masking tape and everything, that was actually reasonably quick. And I thought, okay, and the sun by this point getting dark, I decided, right, I'm just gonna get this second gate done. Bad idea, Daryl, bad idea. So, you know, Dazz, I thought, yeah, let's get it done. Rushed it. Anyway, put the paint in, put the tape on, turn the gate upside down, turn the gate back up. Paint is on the outside of the gate. I've got this white paint. It was drips of this done white grey undercoat paint all over the outside of these beautifully painted powder coated gates in matte black. Disaster! A disaster. 3. No use crying over spilt paint. Disaster. There's paint on the outside of these gates. So I thought, oh, it must be the tape. I haven't done, because I'd only actually put one piece of tape on each of those holes because it had worked so well on the first gate. So I thought, no worries, I'll just put one piece on. So I take the tape off, I put 3 pieces of tape on. There was paint on the tape, so that was what was confusing me a little bit at this stage. I was thinking that it was leaking from the tape. At this point, I think, there's paint on the gate, it's a bit dark. I'm gonna take the gate up onto my back deck where there's lights on the outside of my house so I can see this paint, and I'm just gonna wipe it off before it dries off the gate. Oopsie daisy. Disaster strikes. The paint is all over the deck now. I'm looking at this trail of paint going from one corner of my deck to the other corner, and I do not want paint all over it. It's just a stained deck. So I quickly take the gate off the deck, spray some water on the paint to make sure it's not going to dry in any hurry. Tried to spray it, kind of removed the first part of it, but was still there. So I'm still at this point, haven't realized that the paint is not coming from the tape. So I take the gate at that point to the garage, place the tape, turn the gate, and at that point I've got good lighting, and I realize as I spill more paint kind of onto the driveway slash the strip drain, I spill more paint. I'm like, but at that point I realized where the paint's actually coming from, where I removed the warping from the gate. I pushed it out with a car jack. When I did that, on just one of the welds, I cracked the weld. When I looked carefully, I could see there was like a little hole. At least I had found the problem. At this point, it's getting into the evening. I've got paint on the deck, I've got paint on the gate, and I've got paint on my driveway slash strip drain in front of my garage door. I'm getting the hose out again. Before I went and cleaned everything up, I came up with a solution to the hole in the gate. I went and grabbed just a little tube of super glue, filled the little hole, got a scrubbing brush, scrubbed like fury across the whole way across the deck where I'd spilled that, wiped the gate with a cloth with a bit of cleaning spirits on it, scrubbed a bit on the driveway and the strip drain. I've got it all pretty cleaned up, and then I went very cautiously, went back down to the grassy area and started swirling it around. At this point I'm successful. I do the gymnastics with the gate, get it all done, job done, poured the paint out into a bucket. But the good news is I'm pretty sure all of the internal surfaces, they are well coated. The only way you'd really know would be to like send in a boroscope or send in some mini little like robot ant with a camera, or cut it open. Not going to do any of those things. I am just going to hope that I did that well. Anyway, that's that job done. And this other thing I wouldn't mind getting done today is that I bought a can of not denatured fish oil that they've removed the smell from. I can't remember the term for that. Descented fish oil. I'm just gonna spray that into the posts, into the gates, and then
This project is really starting to come together now. The powder coated frames and posts look mint, and all that's left to do is concrete the posts, stain some timber horizontals, and attach them to the gates and make a latch to keep them shut. Stay tuned to Kiwi Dazz to see how the final stages of this project come together. As promised, here's what I did right, what I did wrong, and what you should do differently. Maybe. What I did right. 1. Removing mill scale with vinegar. Check out my video. 2. Making perfectly square gate frames with my right angle welding jig. Check out my video on making the frames and my other video on making the jig. Links to all videos in the description and pinned comment. 3. Giving everything a wet and dry sand before taking it to the powder coater. 4. Getting it powder coated. $100 well spent to get a really nice finish. 5. Drilling holes in the frame so that the internals of the gate frames are all interconnected. Necessary if you get them galvanized or want to prime and fish oil the insides like I did. 6. Priming the insides and fish oiling to inhibit internal corrosion. And 7. Just generally doing an overall nice job on the fabrication and welding, and spending that extra time to grind all of my welds with flat discs and die grinder, which has made the end result look really nice. What mistakes I made? 1. Warping the gates when welding on the fixing tabs. See my video on welding on the fixing tabs and my video on fixing the warps. 2. Not using pre-galvanized steel for making these exterior gate frames, or getting the whole frames hot dip galvanized before powder coating. 3. Not talking to the powder coater earlier about the project I was planning to possibly avoid mistake number 2. 4. Using a white colored primer inside black painted gate frames. And 5. Not having a better visual inspection for cracks or holes in the welded joints before pouring white
primer inside black gate frames. 6. Brushing and working with paint in the dark without decent lighting. And 7. Removing the galvanized from the weld-on gate hinges. I removed it with vinegar for welding onto the frames in post, and should have just ground the area to be welded. What you should avoid and maybe do differently, I'll leave that up to you actually. If I was doing this project again, I might only change some of the things I did, but I would definitely go to the powder coater and have a chat before starting. I might use the pre-galvanized part and only remove the galvanized where I am welding, or I might do everything the same as I did, but look into having it hot dip galvanized before powder coating. Or I might find that what I have done is fine and just do it all the same again. I'll give an update at some point on the Kiwi Dazz channel on how the gates are going, so subscribe for this and more Kiwi Dazz antics.